Welcome, welcome. 2024 mock draft. I'm going to do the GM perspectives. So I'll try to give some insight what I think the teams would be thinking about. So here we go. So Chicago Bears on the clock. Everyone here, we like Caleb Williams. Um, we know there's some issues with his social media and stuff, but he is the best player. We are receiving calls about this pick, but we feel like it's kind of important to get the franchise quarterback of the future. A lot of people comparing to this kid, Mahomes, and got good legs, good arm, good instincts. Um, Redskins are looking to trade up with us, but I don't think that we want to just get more picks. Sometimes we need to get a player, and quarterback's kind of important. So we're gonna do it. So the first pick, first round, NFL draft, Bears select Caleb Williams. Redskins getting a few calls. Vikings looking up, offering us a couple first, second. Not really debating moving back since there is a quarterback here. A lot of people consider first round #1 pick in a lot of the drafts if Caleb wasn't here. So Washington Redskins select Jaden Daniels. So reason why we decided to go with him over Drake May is looked better in the pocket than May this year. Just as strong as arm and more mobile. A little lean for us. Kind of not liking the pick of Robert Griffin 2.0, but if Jaden can stay healthy, we like our chances here. Vikings were calling. So were the Raiders. So were the Broncos. So a lot of mid areas looking. Patriots on the clock. So we need a quarterback. We also need a lot of other position needs. So we're looking to trade back. Vikings are looking to move up. So are the Broncos giving us a call, and Raiders are giving us a call. So we're going to accept the trade here. So for the Vikings, and the Vikings are giving us their 2 first rounders, next year's first rounder, and can't see this. Oh, here we go. 2 first rounders and next year's first rounder for our pick. Probably be a little more going on than that, but we'll just do that. So, with the Minnesota Vikings, 3rd selection. The Minnesota Vikings select Drake May, North Carolina. So Drake May had a rough second year last year, but with the traits, reminds teams of Josh Allen, and with the Vikings, Kirk Cousins moving on, they definitely need a quarterback, and they already traded some of their pick draft capital to get another first rounder this year, and everyone knew what they were trying to do. So now there are 2 teams later on. Arizona wants to move back. We're talking to some teams, but the only teams that we're getting called for is Denver and the Raiders. I think both teams kind of have a quarterback in mind. We'll see if we get any offers from them, but we're waiting and waiting and waiting. We're not hearing or seeing nothing. So we are looking at receivers here, defensive players, but none that we like. We're thinking between Harrison and Neighbors. Harrison's a little more polished, Neighbors a little more raw. We like how our quarterback likes to make time to throw deep, so we're going to select a playmaker here. So Arizona Cardinals select the number 4 overall pick, Malik Neighbors, LSU. Alright, so Chargers on the clock. Also probably wanting to move back here, but the calls we're getting from the Denver, who has limited draft capital, and the Raiders isn't too appealing. Seems like both teams might be looking at the same guys, but they're not willing to give too much to get up here. So John Harbaugh and staff here really want to improve the trenches. We also deficient at receivers right now, so we're kind of just looking for best available player. Everybody knows my head coach likes a strong run game, strong defense, so most people think we're going to get a receiver, but we're actually going to get the best offensive lineman in the draft. So Chargers select the number 5 overall pick, Joe Alt, offensive tackle, Notre Dame. So Giants now on the clock. Giants need receiver, tight ends, thinking about retiring, secondary needs help. They also could possibly use a quarterback. They need a. So the offensive wise, if they win offensive tackles here, they could have their choice at a couple good guys. Fashanu out of Penn State, Fuag out of Oregon State, both 2 good picks. The receivers that they both were targeting, Neighbors is there, Marvin Harrison's there. They didn't really expect Harrison to drop down here. Feel for them that could be a big steal, or they could trade back. Teams looking to trade up. Buffalo contacted them, trying to do a lot to get up, but don't have a lot of draft capital. Another team that contacted them is the Raiders, Broncos, getting a little antsy to get their quarterbacks, but the Giants are going to sit here, trying to get some playmakers. They feel like their receiving core has a lot of number 2s, and instead of drafting a quarterback, the Giants stay at pick number 6 and surprise people by selecting Marvin Harrison Jr. They really debated Brock Bowers there, but last minute they changed their mind and picked Marvin Harrison Jr. So next on the clock is the Titans. Kind of everyone's slotted Joe Alt here, but Joe Alt never came to us. We're looking at front 7 trenches for the most part. Another position, we have a young rookie quarterback, a second-year quarterback, so kind of want to give him some playmakers. So Rome's here. Brock Bowers is here. Also have our choice of the best offensive tackle. So young option at quarterback's gonna go. So the Tennessee Titans with the number 7 overall pick get help for their young quarterback and select Brock Bowers, tight end from Georgia. So a lot of people expected them to go tackle, and instead they grab a tight end for their young quarterback. Next on the clock is Atlanta. Atlanta can use defensive line, offensive line, cornerback, receiver, kind of best available here. Rome's available. They got their pick at tackles. They have their pick at best defensive player available. Rome Odunze looks pretty good here. So just like with Minnesota, the Atlanta Falcons want to have a high-powered offense. So with the 8th overall pick, the Atlanta Falcons select Rome Odunze. So Chicago Bears on the clock. Chicago Bears just drafted the quarterback, their future. Defense improved a lot last year. So right here, we could take some playmakers to help out Caleb Williams. But we also have our pick at the best defensive player, edge rusher out of Alabama, Dallas Turner. Looks pretty good. Could have a cornerback here. So the second selection for the Chicago Bears is defensive end from Alabama, Dallas Turner. So now they have the leader of the future for their defense and their offense. So Jets, they're looking at their futures running short, so it might be their 1 or 2 years to win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. Gonna get some help on offense. So they're looking for a best field player in offense, so could help the line a little bit. Could get a receiver out of LSU, Brian Thomas. Tight end Bowers, they were hoping would fall here, which surprisingly was not. So the Jets are going to take Harrison, get out of there. Offensive tackle from Penn State, Fashanu. So after moving back, Harrison, get out. After moving back, the Patriots are still in need of a quarterback. They gambled here, and their gamble paid off because they were looking for a quarterback, and the quarterback that they wanted all along is still there. So at pick 11, after moving back from pick 3 with the Vikings, the New England Patriots select quarterback Michael Penix, Washington's University of Washington. So injury history, that's the only thing that's holding people back. Got a great arm, protected, can throw the ball as good as anyone in college football. So Michael Penix goes to Washington. So now sitting at 12, the Broncos also need a quarterback. Oakland Raiders, later. Sitting at 12, the Denver Broncos need a quarterback, but they also need some other players. Go away, Harrison, okay? Go! Sitting here at 12, Denver needs a lot of help, but they also need a quarterback. Sitting here, I got a couple of scrappy young quarterbacks with decent arms. Both can move around, in Bo Nix and McCarthy. No other teams need quarterbacks on the board. Oakland behind them needs a quarterback, but after that, they're just kind of looking around. There's no really competition there. So 12th selection in Ryan's mock draft, Denver Broncos select quarterback J.J. McCarthy, Michigan. So Oakland Raiders on the clock. Still need a quarterback. Also need a lot of help on defense. Need some help the opposite of Devontae Adams. Need a tight end. Need a lot of things in Oakland, but they did have a quarterback, Donald, play okay last year, but since there is a decent quarterback there, and everybody knows the quarterback class looks good, so with the 13th selection, the Oakland Raiders select Bo Nix, Oregon Ducks. So just like that, 6 quarterbacks off the board before 13. Next on the board is the Saints. Saints need help at line of scrimmage or best available cornerback, so they could go offensive tackle. Still a lot of tackles there that people didn't expect to be on the board. Best player on defense, they got corners, they got defensive end. With the 13th selection, the New Orleans select out of Oregon State, Talis Fuaga, offensive tackle. So Colts on the clock next. Colts need defensive line, defensive backfield. They also could use a playmaker. So best available cornerback on the board for them. And on my board is going to the Colts. With the 15th overall selection, the Indianapolis Colts select Terrion Arnold, cornerback, Alabama. Next up is my Seattle Seahawks. So Seattle Seahawks need interior offensive line, defensive line help. Jared Verse Latou, I can't pronounce his name, is on the board still. Injury history there, really productive. Got an edge player out of Florida State. Byron Murphy, Johnny Newton. Couple other defensive tackles here that are available. Offensive side, they do need linemen. They have Troy Fontano here. They have a lot of Jackson Powers, Barton. But I think the Seahawks, just like they have in the future, are looking to trade back. So everyone kind of says a likely spot would be with the Buffalo Bills. So Buffalo Bills are going to give their 28th pick, their 60th pick, and a future second round pick or first round pick. Not sure which it would be to move back 12 spots. And after thinking about it, I will say no. Seattle Seahawks will make a selection. They couldn't get the trade in. With the 16th overall pick, the Seattle Seahawks select defensive side of the ball, Jared Verse, Florida State. Opposite of Nuosa. Could have a really solid defensive line. So now the Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock. Jags need receiver or cornerback. Quentin Mitchell, Wiggins, they got their pick at any guys there. Offense, Brian Thomas is there, a pretty good player. I will give them defensive side. The 17th overall pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars select cornerback Nate Wiggins, Clemson. There's a debate here between Mitchell and Wiggins. Wiggins is more explosive, faster cornerback. Mitchell's a little more playmaking, but smaller college, so Clemson quarterback it is. Okay, so on the clock is the Bengals. Bengals need cornerback, defensive line, pass catchers, kind of what they're looking at here. Got Alatu available, got Quentin Mitchell available. On the offensive side, they have Brian Thomas Jr. who worked the slot with opposite. They already have a lot of receivers though. So I think the Bengals will make more sense going on the defensive side of the ball. So with the 18th overall selection, the Bengals select Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback, Toledo. Only thing holding this guy back from being a higher pick was his 40 time over 4.5. And they do say cornerbacks with run over 4.5 have a pretty low success rate in the NFL. Next up is the Rams. Definitely need help on the line of scrimmage since they lost their best player. Johnny Newton's available. Byron Murphy is available. Edge rusher Latu is available. So they're going to have their choice at him. So with the 19th overall selection in the 2024 Ryan Mock Draft, the Los Angeles Rams select Byron Murphy, Texas. So plug-and-play replacement for Aaron Donald. Probably not what they would have went with if Aaron Donald didn't retire, but since he retired, they had to fill his shoes. So the Steelers, they could get help for their new quarterbacks, or they could look line of scrimmage or cornerback. A lot of corners already took a run, so they're going to go the offensive line. So on the offensive side of the ball, there is a pretty high couple of good guys here. So let's see who they pick. Pittsburgh Steelers with the number 20 pick in the NFL draft pick, offensive tackle / guard Troy Fautanu from Washington. A lot of people projected him to go a little bit higher, maybe to Seattle, but he falls, and now he can back up an ex-Seattle quarterback in Russell Wilson. Pass block for him. So next up is the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins need defensive line, interior line, and cornerbacker, just kind of like what everyone here in the bottom of the draft was looking for. Got someone to fit this build just for them. #21st overall pick, the Miami Dolphins select Johnny Football, defensive tackle from Illinois. It's the big, strong man. All right, Eagles are up. Eagles need center to replace their retired Kelsey, and they also need a cornerback. The cornerbacks that they were looking at are off the board. Kool-Aid's still there, so that could be a selection for them. But I think just like the Rams, they're just going to fill a retired spot because it was such a good spot for them for so many years. So with the 22nd overall pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Jackson Power Johnson. All right, so now the Patriots are on the clock. Patriots already selected their quarterback, and everybody knows with a quarterback, you want someone to go with them, so easy pick here. So in the 2024 draft, the Patriots' second selection of the draft selects receiver LSU Brian Thomas Jr. So Michael Penix has a burner to throw to. Could be a big upgrade for the Patriots offense. So Dallas Cowboys on the clock now. Cowboys looking at cornerbacks, offense and defensive line. Don't really need pass rushers, so the Dallas Cowboys looking in the trenches. The 24th overall selection, the Dallas Cowboys select the big man from Alabama, J.C. Latham. So was looking at Mims there as well. He's a pretty good tackle, but they're going to go with Latham. So Green Bay, kind of same scenario. Since there is one really good offensive tackle left, I think that makes this selection fairly easy for the Packers. Got a block for their new running back and protect their young quarterback. So with the 25th overall pick, the Green Bay Packers select the biggest tackle in the draft, Marius Mims. So Tampa had a good year last year with Baker Mayfield. They need edge rusher cornerback. Luckily for them, this draft's pretty loaded, and there's a couple good ones on the board still. 26th overall pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Pac-12 standout, Latu. So Latu's a lot like Penix, had a lot of injury history, and then last couple of years played really well. Arizona Cardinals making their second selection. They could use interior line, defensive backs. Since they're trying to build up their offense. The Arizona Cardinals select center inside lineman Graham Barton from Duke. So now they have a quarterback, they have their receiver of the future, and their quarterbacks getting a chance to have an explosive offense. So Buffalo Bills, we're going to trade up for a receiver, but kind of just let the draft play down to them. There are some good receivers here. You got the two receivers out of Texas. You have Franklin out of Oregon. If you look overall, there's also a super stud top talent, Chop Robinson. They got a cornerback available here, a couple corners available. So they go with the bigger receiver out of Texas, Adion Mitchell. Next up, you got the Lions. The Lions don't have a lot of holes, so they're probably just going to take best player available. Best player available to them is a pretty scrappy player. So with the 29th pick in the first round, the Detroit Lions select Cooper DeJean, defensive back, Iowa. They contemplated Chop Robinson for his explosiveness, but instead they went with a scrappy player because they have a scrappy coach. Ravens looking in the trenches. They could have a tackle. They could play guard in Guyton. They have Sumatra tackle BYU. They have a guard of UConn, Haynes. But I think what the Ravens would do is just keep building up their trenches and select. Selecting the best player available, the Ravens try to replace the two edge rushers that rolled and select a young pass rusher named Chop Robinson. With two teams left in the end of the first, up first is the 49ers. Everybody knows the Niners like to always improve their trenches, so looking at offensive line, Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma could look to play right tackle and replace Trent Williams really soon, so easy selection for Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. Offensive tackle Oklahoma, Tyler Guyton. And the Kansas City Chiefs coming at the end, the draft. Buffalo kind of sealed their decision for him. Both receivers out of Texas were both really good, and Kansas City's best rookie receiver, just got arrested, so he might be gone. So they desperately need to get Mahomes some playmakers. So with the final pick in the first round, the Kansas City Chiefs select receiver from Texas, Xavier Worthy. And that calls it for the draft. So if you look at the full results, some of the things like here is you got a lot of quarterbacks going early, which a lot of people are saying McCarthy is going to push up high. I just don't see it. So Vikings, if the Vikings want McCarthy, for instance, I mean, they might hop somewhere up all the way to third, but if they can get to third, they're not hopping there for McCarthy, they're going there for May. And I believe if they can't get May, they could just sit down here and take him at 11, because at 11, all these teams here don't need quarterbacks. So unless one of these teams like Denver, Oakland hop, then they can get their quarterback. So if they want JJ McCarthy, I feel like they're just going to sit here. And my thought here is if Drake May is not your guy and you're the Patriots and you can get any of these other three quarterbacks, then you just trade back and draft one of these three quarterbacks, especially if you can select at 11, 12, or 13, because you can get one of these guys. As you can see, the Vikings hopped up, got May, and then Penix, McCarthy, and Nix went to all the quarterback needy teams in a row. Probably the order that I would give them versus the order that might go. So I would say Penix here is probably not going to happen. McCarthy, Michigan ties, Tom Brady seems about compared to Tom Brady. So, I mean, Patriots getting another Michigan quarterback would probably be more hype for the team, but I think Penix makes more sense. Steals here. Joe Alt going to the Chargers makes sense. Receiver going to the Cardinals and Giants makes sense. Brock Bowers here is kind of an odd pick, but I have heard people talk about giving the young quarterback a tight end to work with. So tight ends are a quarterback's friend, so help out the young guy. Rome to the Falcons. Turner's been mocked here, but I feel like if Rome's available there, they'd be hard to pass up a Julio Jones type receiver, the go to organization that used to have Julio. Chicago getting a defender to go opposite of Caleb Williams is more important than them grabbing a receiver like everyone's calling. Build up the line for Aaron Rodgers. Like I said, 3 needy quarterback teams. As you can see here, it almost feels like at this point of the draft, everyone needs offense and defensive lines and cornerbacks. It's like literally the best available. And then you throw in some offensive, so you go offensive line, defensive line, and cornerbacks. That's like what all the teams need at this. All the teams in the middle of the row or the end are just building up their trenches. Trenches win you football. You got tackle, edge, tackle, edge, tackle, 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 interior line, tackle, defense, tackle. And then you got your cornerback run in this area. This is kind of all the defensive players start flying off the board after first 14 picks. And your edges, and then you go back on these offensive tackle run, and then after the first set of receivers, which ends at pick 8, I feel like there'd be a lull for receivers, and then toward the end of the first, then receivers just start flying off again. So there's going to be these areas like right here. You got the Minnesota traded down, or Patriots traded back, and then now they have their quarterback, and they're going to want a receiver. So if you're the Buffalo Bills, you want to trade up to 23, which I almost did, would make sense, right? Because you got a few teams in here, so they could get it. They're not going to get another receiver, but Bucks could get a receiver to replace their aging receivers. Green Bay's got enough receivers. Dallas has enough receivers, but knowing that the Patriots would get a receiver here, they could trade up. Or maybe even the Buffalo trades up to, let's say, the Steelers to get a receiver, because I thought about receiver here at 20. So, as you can see, quarterbacks are just going to fly off the board. Offense dominates the draft early. Got some defense scattered with offensive tackles and receivers at the end, and that's how it plays out. Hope you guys have a good night.